Hi everybody and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about probability. So after watching the video today, we're going to have an understanding of what probability is and how to do some basic probability calculations. So first things first, what is probability? Well, probability is just simply the study of chance or the study of randomness. When there is an uncertain event, we use probability to study the possible outcomes and try to predict what the outcome of that uncertain event is. So to describe probability, we use a number between 0 and 1. If there is a probability of 0, that means there's no chance. Literally cannot happen. If we have a probability of 1, that means that it must happen. It will certainly occur. And anything in between those two numbers, you can probably guess. The closer to 1 it is, the more certain it is. The closer to 0 it is, the less likely it is to happen. So something like the Patriots winning the Super Bowl, that's like 0.99, almost certain to occur. Something like the Browns winning the Super Bowl, that's like 0.1 maybe, very, very unlikely to occur. And the notation for probability that we use is just P and then parentheses, whatever it is. So if we're talking about what I just said there with the Patriots in the Super Bowl, so the probability of the Patriots win the Super Bowl, we would literally just write it as probability of, that's what the P stands for, P of, and then whatever's in parentheses of the event. Secondly, an additional definition for us today is sample space. This is super important for the start of probability. And this is the set of all possible outcomes of a chance experiment. The way that I think about this anecdotally is like, what are literally all of the possible options that could happen? So it's just kind of like a list of any possibility at all. So for example, if we're writing out the sample space of a die, 6-sided dice, there are a few options. You could roll a 1, you could roll a 2, you could roll a 3, you could roll a 4, you could roll a 5, or you could roll a 6. So it's quite literally a list of all of the possible rolls. And they do this for a lot of things. Honestly, when I was in your seat on the other side of this, the deck of cards always confused me because I didn't really know all the suits and face cards and all that stuff perfectly well. So again, feel free to either ask me or use Google for that. But basically, the idea for the sample space is you're just listing out all of the possibilities. And there's going to be a lot of different outcomes. Usually, it's like flip a coin, 6-sided die, or a deck of cards are the most commonly asked questions. So the last thing, and why these sample spaces are so important, is the probability of an event is defined as the number of outcomes of the event over the number of total outcomes. So total outcomes, another way to say that is just the number of outcomes in the sample space. So a good example of this would be if we're looking at the probability of flipping a coin and getting heads. Well, if you look at the sample space of this event, you can either get a heads or you can get tails. So if we're defining this, the number of outcomes in the sample space, there's 1, 2. How many of these are the ones that we're looking for? Well, we only want heads. Heads counts. If we get tails, we lose. So there is one event that we're looking for. So the probability for this is literally 1 over 2 or 0.5. And that's how we're going to kind of look at these sample spaces today, is kind of in this format. So if your probability of rolling a die and getting a, let's say 5 or a 6, well, let's list out all of the possible rolls. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possible rolls, and we can either get a 5 or a 6. So that looks like we have 1, 2 possible outcomes. So 2 outcomes that we like over 6 total outcomes. And that's why we really want to look at probability, is again, list out all of those options and then see which one of those options we